Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Ill Factor from beatacademy.com. Now, this is a second video of a mini-series that I'm putting together to walk you through how to get the most out of your stock plugins in your DAW. And in this video, we're going to focus on our second category, which deals with dynamics. That's going to do with gate, compression, and things that can help control the overall volume of the audio in your projects. So let's dive right in. It's always easier to deal with consistency. So if you have something that's pretty much at the same volume all the time, that's less movement or less changes you have to make once you set that specific instrument in your mix in place. But if that instrument or that audio is completely jumping up and down in volume and changing so much, and it's very dynamic, you could use your plugins, such as a compressor, to help control that so that you have a consistent volume to deal with. That way it makes mixing it and creating a balance in your mix a lot easier. So we're going to start by using a gate plugin. So the gate can be accessed in your audio effects folder here in Ableton Live, and I'm using that on the vocal. So here I have a vocal in a project, and I'll just play that in context so you can see what's going on.
You know I has me wide awake tonight, awake tonight.
So let's go ahead and use a gate plugin. I'm going to go audio effects folder, find the gate, click and drag that on top of that vocal track. Now, when it comes to gate, the way I like to think of it is, imagine you're in your room, you're working on your music, crocheting, knitting a sweater, whatever it is you do, and the door to your room is just slightly cracked open, and somebody's watching TV in another room. Well, because the door is slightly cracked open, you could hear a little bit of the noise coming from the other room. But if your door was completely wide open, then you obviously are going to hear a lot more from the other rooms in your home. And that's how I like to think of the gate. Once audio passes a certain threshold, it will then become heard. So depending on how wide that door or how wide the gate is open, that's how much audio you're going to let through, right? Now, the way to determine how wide open that door or gate's going to be is the threshold. So once audio volume passes the top blue line over here, then you begin to hear the audio. So if you wanted to close your door slam shut, you would pretty much have the threshold all the way up. That means that there's no way that means that the audio would have to pass plus 6 dB just to be heard. Or if you wanted it wide open, that means that you bring the threshold all the way down, and the second audio passes negative 70 dB, you get to hear it. So let's try this out. I'll leave the threshold maybe around negative 15 dB. Now we can faintly hear the audio, and yet it still hasn't passed the threshold. And that's because we're allowing a certain amount of noise floor to be heard. So that's right here, the floor. If I brought that all the way down to 0, we won't hear anything at all. And so this is probably like you stuffing towels or pillows around the door so that you won't hear anything, right? I'm still going with that analogy. So we'll leave the noise floor here. And so this is actually used so that you don't want it to be, sometimes it can be stiff if you hear something and then absolute silence immediately after that. So using the noise floor tastefully can still have some of the signal there, but when you lower the threshold,
You know I has me wide awake tonight.
once those little, the vocal audio passes that line, then the gate becomes active and you could hear the audio. But having a little bit of noise floor actually makes it so it's not so dramatic. It's not like you're slamming the door every time somebody's trying to talk to you, right? So you can mess around with the noise floor to taste. Then you have this other knob here, which some gates have and some don't. But typically what this does is create a range. So this is the return. And the higher in volume that you put this at will determine how less of that open and closing that you're trying to do manually with your door. So imagine you're standing at the door and you're just trying to open it slightly, close it, open it. And if you're doing that really fast, you can get a real chattery or stuttery effect. So I'll put it right here at 0 and you can hear what I'm talking about.
You know I has me wide awake tonight. You know I love. Ask me what.
You can hear it right there. It gets a little disrupted. So if I open up the range a little bit more, it'll smooth that out.
You know I love. Ask me wide awake tonight.
And now we move towards the attack of how fast this gate will react. The slower the attack time will also depend on how slow it will take for you to close your door.
You know I love. Ask me wide awake.
And you can see that the audio now takes a new form. It's actually a lot smoother on the front end. So do you want it to be really quick?
You know I love. Ask me.
Which can cause very it sounds like the audio can be really interrupted at times. It comes, choppy. So that's how you think it. Quick attack makes it very choppy. A lot smoother is a slower attack. Hold will determine how long the gate will allow the audio to pass through the door. Like, how long do you want me to hold this door open, pretty much. And next, the release determines just how fast you're slamming the door once the audio passes through. So if we had a very short release, that means that the gate is immediately going to close the door the second the audio goes back down below the threshold.
You know I love. Ask me wide awake tonight.
So look at the difference when we raise the release up.
You know I love. Ask me wide awake tonight. Awake.
So it makes it a lot more natural. It's not as if it's, stopping when there's a brief moment when the audio passes goes below the threshold. So you want to just create a nice balance between having a nice slow release and maybe even a medium hold. So it's holding on to the audio for a while, and then it's just releasing it not so quick, so it sounds robotic. And then you can probably just give a gentle, quick attack here. And then the important part is, where are you setting that threshold? So gates can be really useful when you want to just focus on the main audio and not have any of the noise or ambience that's captured along with that. It's also not just for vocals, but you can use this on drum recordings. So if you want to just focus in on the snare, obviously when you're recording multiple things like a drum kit, you're going to have bleed or audio from other sources bleeding onto that recording. So gates are a great way to just zero in and focus on the primary sound that you want to work on. In this gate in particular, you're able to sidechain, meaning that you can have something else determine when the gate opens and closes. So in this case, if I hit the sidechain button here, I can assign an input from any other instrument in my project, and every time that instrument plays, the gate will open. So if I hit the kick and I hit play,
You know I have me wide awake.
and you can see the kick there being in the dark gray, that's the source of the gate opening. And these controls still have an effect because determining on how much the audio is being held or how quick the release is will determine the response of the audio. So if I brought a quick attack and quick release, you would listen to the vocal every time the kick plays.
You know,
So solo the kick.
you know, have me wide tonight.
So I would have to lower the threshold if I want more of that audio to come through.
You know, have me wide tonight.
Well, you can see how the gate can also be used in this way as a creative tool. You can use other instruments or other things in your projects to determine when the gate opens and closes. So I hope this has been helpful for you in kind of exploring and understanding how gates can be used to control dynamics in your projects. In the next video, we're going to cover compression and dive in a little bit about that. So just go ahead and subscribe so that you can stay up to date when the next video arrives. Thanks, and I'll see you soon.